Okay, what's going on? Good evening, good evening. This is going to be today's recap for the trade that we took inside the Discord for Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. So I'll talk a little bit about dollar. I'll talk briefly here about what we wanted to see for oil, and then I'll just jump straight into the execution of the opening order for NQ. Okay. Now, we've been tracking dollar for quite some time, right? Wanting to see more upside pressure here. We ended up getting a nice day yesterday, right? Being Wednesday. Now we're into Thursday, but yesterday we had a bullish engulfing candle here that ended up closing higher high, going through our level of 100 and up to 150. So looking for price to potentially break out to 101, maybe even 100, 150, 102, but we'll see what we end up getting for tomorrow. But yesterday was really, really good. And I think that kind of factored into um, essentially why we seen such a monster move after we took profit on our positions that we took at the 9 a.m. for NQ. Okay. Now, looking at the 4 hour direction, right, when it comes to YM, ES, and NQ, I personally wanted to see them move down today. Like I wanted to see YM come down and fill the FEG. I wanted to see ES come down, fill the fair value gap 75.25, and then the new week opening gap. Right, same thing for NQ on that 4 hour. I wanted to see shorts push that price down into that zone. Okay. And I figured that it would happen around FOMC, so we wanted to get our move fairly early. When you jump down into a 1 hour, I'll jump straight into NQ here now, 15 and 5. But when you look at this intraday price, it's essentially the same thing. We wanted to see if price was going to push down to this key level, and we wanted to see if price was going to push down to the new week opening gap for NQ, where we were anticipating, either maybe finding buy positions on NQ on futures during the New York and just taking profit, or finding if it was a layup type of short position that would have rolled over, then we would have taken that too. Okay. So going into 15.5, or I guess we can go into, let me see if I have an hour. We'll go 15.5. Okay. So right at the New York Open, a lot of the times they're gonna body people. There's a couple things that I personally look for, right, when I'm taking a solid setup. Excuse me, is one of the main things I like to do is I like to wait till equity's open to take my trades. I like to look for trades in the first 15 minutes of the hour, right? And the last 15 minutes of the hour. So what does that mean? I like to take trades, right, that align with like 8:45 going into 9 and then 9 a.m. going into 9:15. And then outside of that time window, I'm less likely to look for price action to do or present my signal just off of data and just off of functionality of the markets. Okay. When I take a trade, right, I already have these areas preset, right? So these are what's called a fixed stop loss, right? So I already, every time I take a trade, no matter where I enter from, right? So hypothetically, let's say I enter from, let's say I entered from this daily open area, right? 30,311. I would have a 20-point risk and already mapped out a 60-point gain, right? And I also do this for my 1 to 5s, right? So just 20-point risk for a 100-point gain, right? And so I don't have to think about how the risk is going to look when I take the setup, okay? And so coming into New York, right, what I wanted to see, right, what we all could see going into this was the New York Open. So this is going to be your 8:30 here on the 5 minute time frame. Right now, a lot of times when the equities opens up and it just sells off really fast, it creates FOMO and it creates a lot of people getting chopped up. And so I like to let that first 5 minute candle open and then start to build a bias off of that. And so let's see here. Looking. And so that first candle, right, as you can see here, 8:30 to 8:35, it pushes down lower. Now, as you're looking at this here on the left, I'm also focused inside this 15-minute demand, right? Because a lot of times price will respond like this in an area and then continue higher. But as you can see here, all they did in that first 5 minute candle, 8:30, 8:35, is push down into that demand area. So pushing down into the 15-minute area. And then you had 8:35 going into 8:40. They're still holding, like the body candles aren't closing lower, which is like a break of structure, which is really showing signs of weakness. And then the 8:40 to 8:45 candle, right? As you can see, it turns into a wick here on the 15, right? It's a fast move. That's like it turns into a wick like this, and the 5 minute goes back up. But as you can see, that structure, it only goes and makes a lower high, right? So you had this high here, which was that New York high where the liquidity was, but they didn't close the bodies higher, right? But they did draw on the liquidity of that New York short, okay? And so for me, I didn't take a buy position on that first push up, and I thought possibly I had missed a move in the 15 and 5. But I know a lot of the times the best move happens in the first 15 minutes or last 15 minutes of the hour. So now, when you go down and look at this on a 1 minute, right, that 5 and 1 minute order for NQ here, you can see where it was. Okay. So this was that 5 minute candle, 35 to 40, coming into the 5 minute demand at 30,400. And then I was actually looking to call out long positions right around here. I was trying to frame it inside my 5 minute demand candle, basically off my entry strategy. And then I seen one sign of strength here, which was 39 going into 40. And then this was 40 going into 41. It obviously extends up. And I was looking to frame at least here for about a 1 to 3, right? So I was looking at this area here, right, on that 1 minute, like this when the candle comes down into this area. They had that one little small sign of strength candle, and then as it started to push up, right, I'm also looking left. If you look over here right now, if you look to the left screen really quick, and I'm wanting to make sure that I'm inside that candle's demand area when I take the order, right? It's very specific on how I want that location to be because it's going to help me be able to manage my risk on the trade. Okay. And so this one was a little bit harder of a trade to take. There was an individual in the chat today that was able to take that trade, right? And he was able to capitalize on it. I was wanting the trade. It was a damn good trade. I definitely think it could have presented exactly what we wanted, right? So we ended up getting this later on, but this was the area, like I said, I seen at the very beginning of the market open. Now we hadn't got the first 15-minute candle to print yet. We didn't have any really high volatile news to look forward to, but we did have a target, right? We had 1 to 3 that we could definitely map out, right? And at this point, this is how the 5 minute looked when this came down, right? Like all you had was this, and 5 minute ran back up into our 5 minute supply where we expect buyers on smaller time frames like than 1 minute, like 100 tick players and stuff like that, for this type of move to be where they start to exit because they're either going to exit inside the range or outside the range, right? So when you take a buy position, for you to exit on futures, you have to put a limit or you have to manually exit with a sell order, right? And so we were looking at this on the 1 minute here back to the right side, right? For like a 1 to 5 would push you back into supply, so 30,513s. But just getting above that New York short that forced their trades, right? Mostly under probably 500 level. They put their stop just at the previous high. We wanted to aim for their liquidity, right? And then that's what you end up seeing get delivered here with this candle, right? And it happened so fast, and that's why it falls over so quickly on this 5 minute because the buyers start to let go of their position, right? And you see capitulation because of the surrender and the letting go and the functionality all clicking together. Okay. Now I didn't take that trade there. The trade that I ended up giving out for the Discord that really smacked for us, right, was the trade here that I will go over. Now, what they ended up doing is they ended up taking profit on that position. Ended up having someone in the chat, I think it was one of my friends named Chris, who made like $1,000+ on that push up, and it was a pretty good trade. Okay. Now price rolls over, right? Now you can see this is in the first 15 minutes or the last 15 minutes of the hour, right? Price rolls over. This is 55 going into 9, capitulation, right? That capitulation takes that London low liquidity that I wanted to see, right? I wanted to see a couple things in a trade, right? I said timing, which is first 15 minutes of the hour, last 15 minutes of the hour. I like to see draws and liquidity, right? Because those draws and liquidity are usually going to be, especially when it's falling over, on the sell side is going to be for them to take profit. They have to have a buy limit in the market or they have to press buy by market, and we can be on the other side of that, and it can be a pretty good, easy layup trade. So it's just the functionality of everything, right? But now the first 15 minutes of the hour, everything started to play up. Now, when I'm looking for an RSV model, right, a trade that's really going to work for me, it's going to always present a couple things. Like I said, timing, right? And then it's going to be a high probability target of individuals where they're stuck. So when we ended up seeing, as we've seen our signal 9 a.m. to 9:05, most of my trades that I've been giving out on the stream have been happening at 9:05 going into 9:10 Central Time Zone. But when I see the 5 minute signal, I started giving out the target immediately when I see the signal, because you should have time to do this. You shouldn't be forced taking trades, or taking it and just like feeling like you have to, you're feeling forced. It should all be a flow, right? So we had the 9 to 9:05 candle closed, which was a 5 minute sign of strength, right? So as soon as I draw that line, I know where my target is, which is going to be those New York individuals who shorted the market, right? And the individuals probably pushing their risk into the internal range. But as soon as I get that, as long as I'm in the first 15 minutes of the hour and the last 15 minutes of the hour, and I can identify on the right side of that 5 minute sign of strength, like that candle needs to close on the 5 minute, and then I can identify higher highs and higher lows, right? Then I know, right, as long as it's the right time, that I could frame up 1 minute demand candles. So what ends up happening here is you end up getting this. So this is the candle that ends up printing. That's really nice, right? This is going to be 9:02 going into 9:03. And then you get 9:03 going into 9:04. But if you notice this, it's very subtle things you have to see, right? But you can see the price actually shifts here, right? So right here, you don't know on that right side of that 5 minute sign of strength candle yet, because it looks like lower low, lower high, lower low, right, with this closed. But with this very next candle, you can see here now, right, even on a line graph, you can see here now we're making new highs, right? And so, like I said, can you identify higher highs and higher lows? Now, one of the mantras that I live on when it comes to taking the buy entries is you want to buy when the market's crashing and you want to sell when the market's taking off. So what does that mean, right? When the market's taking off like it is here, this is not when you want to buy, right? You want to wait till the market's crashing back into demand to frame up your risk, right, into the right area of this candle, which I teach live, to then target your areas up, right? So buy when the market's crashing and sell when the market's taking off, okay? And so we're looking at it from this perspective here, right? And so I want to see it come back down into the candle. Now, I already know that after I get my sign of strength candle, the second 5 minute candle is where they're going to test people on the 1 minute, and you're looking for the 1 minute mitigation to then attack back up, okay? And so seeing that candle, and that's the sign right there to start getting ready to form up this area, okay? And then so got that candle to close right there. And then now what I said was, is on the right side of this line, can you identify higher highs and higher lows to take trades? Now, we've been taking our best trades from 9:05 to 9:10. So price comes down, closes at 9:05 to 9:06, 9:06 to 9:07, and then this was 9:07 to 9:08. Now, I gave out the trades. Um, let's see here. Right in the Discord, I put here. Okay, I gave out the trades at 9:06, right? And then got out at 9:25. Okay, so I'm gonna go over what we did right here at 9:06 to 9:25, right? This was the order. This is the area I'm talking about now, right? That 1 minute candle closed higher, it comes back into the area. This was on the right side of that 5 minute sign of strength, right? And we had our target, which was those New York shorts, right? So this is all lining up to what I talked about in the Discord, okay? And so once we got that area to close higher, 9:04, 9:05, then we had 9:05 to 9:06, and then 9:06 to 9:07 is where I entered the market, right? And so like I said, on a typical NQ trade, I like to risk from my entry, right? I got in around those 60, I think it was like the 60 areas here. I like to risk 20 points, right? I was looking for a 1 to 5 here. I like to risk 20 points for 100, right? 20 points for 60, okay? And so price ended up coming back into our area right at the right time, 9:06 going into 9:07. We entered, right? 20 handle risk. Price ends up shooting up in our favor, right? Shorts begin to cover quickly, right? It goes back up to the trap candle supply, which was here, right, in this zone. And then we successfully closed higher through that price here, right? And most people start to buy it here, right? The ICT traders, stuff like that, they start to frame up this order block candle at way high into the range, right? Like up here, right? And they're trying to take the trade, which is still a good trade. I mean, it still has good R, right, to get through the target, but it's just now you've missed out on, most of the swing of this trade by not playing the RSV model, right? So 5 minute sign of strength inside the second candle after the sign of strength, you're going to get the 1 minute mitigation. If you're getting higher highs and higher lows, that's what you want to attack. If it's in the right time, that's perfect. And if you have a clear target, the only time I really want to hold past the 100-point move, so 5 times my risk, is if I have a clear target of liquidity, and where I can give back where people are going to be in the wrong position. Okay, because anyone buying above New York Open with this type of candle pushing up, they're complete noobs. Okay, so that's the move that I gave out today. Right, that trade did end up inside the Discord. I posted this here. That trade did end up yielding from the 906 entry, as you can see here, 314 across all the accounts. So nice bounce back from yesterday, and just really kind of goes to show, like, there's levels to this, and you just have to stick with the plan, right? And then keep working the plan. So appreciate you guys watching this recap of today. I'm not going to really go over too much more other than the 15-5 1 minute position and why we targeted it and kind of how to find, like I've showed here, pretty good, the RSV. Again, just a brief overview. You're looking for draws and liquidity, right, that align with higher time frame context. Most of the time, these reversal moves are going to happen in the first 15 minutes of the hour or the last 15 minutes of the hour. When you're looking for a 5 minute buy position, there's always going to be a 5 minute sign of strength. In that second candle, there's usually going to be manipulation, but that's where the order is going to be usually placed, right, inside the 1 minute. And then once that order is placed in that third 5 minute candle, you should see a sign of strength or a bullish candle print that starts to push back up into the range and signs of short covering from the previous point of interest, most likely being attacked. Okay, so appreciate you guys watching. We'll be live in the Discord tomorrow morning, and we'll see what the market presents. Have a good night.